Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Daily Outrage, episode 4. I'm your host, Keith. Today is an historical day. It started yesterday when they started painting over the walls of the federal buildings all over America. In any office or anything having to do with DEI and any pictorials of the agency's public services and any representations of women and people of color were all being painted over with a dull beige paint. Of course, this was not the most significant thing that happened yesterday, but it was the most symbolic. Entire histories of people are being erased from the public consciousness. The good that federal agencies do is being erased from memory. People of color and women are being disappeared from public view. This is exactly what the Nazis did in the months following Hitler taking power on the same day in January, but in 1933. The Nazis took down anything representing the old Weimar government, street signs, placards, posters. Hell, eventually they even took down the German flag and replaced it with a swastika. The similarity should shock you. This has all happened around a coup, and that is what it is. What seemingly began and ended Friday afternoon. Oh, friends, this is a coup. The entire federal government is being brought into line to serve the whims of the American Führer, Donald Trump. Here's the sad rundown of the news. The Washington Post reports that interim D.C. U.S. Attorney Edward R. Martin yesterday dismissed about 30 federal prosecutors who worked on the January 6 cases. Wall Street Journal reports President Trump fired the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau nearly 2 weeks after his inauguration, following calls by bankers for his ouster. Rohit Chopra confirmed his departure in a letter posted to X Saturday morning. He received a letter from the president removing him from his position late on Friday. Mediate reports FBI agents who investigated Donald Trump and who were fired by the Bureau on Friday were escorted out of the Washington field office, according to reports. A so-called purge of rank-and-file agents and the heads of 20 field offices was announced earlier in the day. Among those who were axed were David Sundberg, who former FBI Director Christopher Wray appointed to head the D.C. field office in 2022. Also on the chopping block were agents reportedly involved in investigating Trump's classified documents case, as well as his January 6th election interference case. The Hill reported Friday evening that the agents in Washington were also escorted out of the building. The Trump administration also forced out a number of FBI officials Friday, including agents who worked on the criminal cases of Donald Trump, as well as the head of various field offices, 20 of them, as a matter of fact, all over the country. The same source said officials in charge of the Washington, D.C., Miami, Seattle, New Orleans, and Las Vegas offices were also sacked. In addition, many other sources report that Elon Musk's goons stormed into the offices that dispersed federal monies and locked federal workers out of those accounts, firing anyone who got in their way. Elon Musk is now effectively the federal paymaster and chief personnel officer for the entire federal service. And no, I am not engaging in hyperbole. Whether Trump authorized it or not is not the point anymore. Federal workers, duly assigned, have lost control of their pay and personnel functions to an unelected foreign agent who overstayed his visa. The entire coup took one afternoon. And it seems no one is doing anything to stop it, much less the Democrats, who are busily wasting their time electing a Democratic National Committee chair who will not be the leader of the party, but its chief fundraiser. D. Earl Stevens is author of Toxic Tales, a caustic collection of Donald J. Trump's very important letters, and he has recently finished up a 30-year career in journalism as the managing editor of Stars and Stripes, the newspaper intended for the armed forces. He had endorsed Ben Wickler to become the next DNC chair. But he came to the conclusion rather quickly that few things mean less because it's becoming, according to him, quote, crystal clear that the Democratic Party is a splintered group of self-interested people who are nowhere near ready to confront the evil that is coming at us with lightning speed. Indeed, NBC News reports today that Ken Martin, the longtime leader of the Democratic Party organization in Minnesota, he's a good old Democratic DFL hand, will be the DNC's chair after winning the election on Saturday. NBC goes on to report the race hinged more on the candidates' organizing and fundraising resumes instead of becoming a battle for the ideological soul of the party as it did in 2017 after Trump's previous election win. Martin was the more experienced hand with deep party relationships. We could have had a fighter, but instead we've been told again, in so many words, that all the Democrats really care about is campaign cash and keeping their asses comfortably in their seats in Congress. Fighting to save our democracy is not necessarily high on their lists. In fact, House Minority Leader Jeffries got his fingers singed when he pledged Democrats would fight President Trump's agenda in the streets. Quote, right now, we're going to keep focus on the need to look out for everyday New Yorkers and everyday Americans who are under assault by an extreme MAGA Republican agenda that is trying to cut taxes for billionaires, donors, and wealthy corporations, and then stick New Yorkers and working class Americans across the country with the bill, Jeffrey said. This is not acceptable. We are going to fight it legislatively. We are going to fight it in the courts. We're going to fight it in the streets. Well, you can guess what happened, right? The entire right-wing universe went apeshit, accusing Jeffries of wanting to burn America down. Well, quote, while President Trump remains focused on uniting our country and delivering the mandate set by the American people, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, incites violence, calling for people to fight in the streets against President Trump's agenda, White House Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai told Fox News Digital. This unhinged, violent rhetoric is dangerous. Leader Jeffries should immediately apologize. That is coming from the party that brought you the violence on January 6th. They have no shame. None at all. They lie right to your face and ask you what you're going to do about it. But the Republicans didn't have to worry. Jeffrey's spokesperson issued a statement saying they did not think we would commit any violence or we're not here to cause any trouble. No. Because, of course, that's only reserved for Trump fascist goons and the police. And Democrats, let's be honest, haven't put on a convincing street protest since Nixon bombed Cambodia over 50 years ago. And no, marching around in pussy hats back in 2017 didn't strike fear into the hearts of anyone on the right. We don't do that anymore. They do, and they win. We sit around and bitch about it on social media and hope for Democrats to find a hero to save the country when all the Democrats care for, as I have said, is campaign cash and winning re-election, even serving in the minority. But Stevens also asks this, why aren't former cabinet members speaking up and defending these people right now while they are under attack by anti-American lowlifes like Elon Musk, who shouldn't be within 3 countries of our federal government? To all you former cabinet officers out there, get your shit together. You are failing the most basic test of leadership by leaving the troops who served you behind. I promise you this won't be forgotten when some of you invariably resurface to throw in for big jobs on the national stage. Their tone-deaf response to the dismantling of our government, and with it, the hell that has arrived, is mind-blowing, but sadly not all that shocking. Stevens goes on to say, consider what happened very, very quietly during a closed-door meeting in some hallowed office buried deep inside our Capitol building that was attacked only 4 years prior. That's where the now minority Democrats in the United States Senate got together and basically let us know nothing had changed from November 4th to November 5th, and they're fucking you. No, it's going to be business as usual for Democrats, and if you, dear reader, don't like it, well, that's just tough shit. Yep, Good old 74-year-old Chuck Schumer will be back leading the team, assisted by 79-year-old Dick Durbin. It was a great day for the Get the Hell Off My Lawn gang and a bad one for America. Stevens says he's angry. We're all angry. We've all been let down. And we're waiting for somebody on the Democratic side to do something, to lead. Stevens says, I spent the past few months communicating with many Democratic Party activists across the country, and I can tell you most of them are seething about this incoherence from party leadership. This was from Christopher Webb, a Democratic strategist in California, in response to my endorsement of Wickler yesterday. Quote, I support you on that, but I'm not endorsing. I agree he's probably the best suited of the options we have, but I feel like we need a bomb thrower, not a fundraiser. There's a lot of absence right now from leadership. Dude, it's driving me crazy. What's keeping me sane is knowing a lot of the rank and file like us see it too. So I'm not crazy. No, he's not. What's crazy is following the same people over and over again who have proven they have absolutely no idea where they are going. The Democratic rank and file, as I have said before, listening to NPR, holding coffee clutches, and lamenting the state of things on social media. So this is how democracy will end now, is it? I went out today to the Walmart, and I noticed a clearly Hispanic family loading endless bags of groceries into their car. Obviously, they were stocking up as Trump's tariffs take effect today, which will send grocery prices and the prices of everything else soaring. I had a thought, and it was a horrible one. How would they react if somebody shouted La Migra? How would I react if it happened right in front of me? After all, this is the Mon Valley, Pennsylvania, not Brentwood. It's gritty, but I live here and I love it. But ICE has been in the area. And I had to wonder if this family was buying so much their car was totally packed because they were risking going out this one time to stock up so they would not have to go out again for a long time. I had another thought of my former coworkers at VA Pittsburgh and how they were holding up, and whether the murals on their walls, the ones I used to walk by, which featured female soldiers and people of color, were also being painted over. I wondered how fearful they were of losing their jobs. Of the veterans being adequately served by the clinical staff at this point, I've heard no one talking about that either. But I also thought of other things. Strangely enough, I thought of the 4th of July, the ones from my youth, full of swimming, sparklers, cookouts, and fireworks. I thought of the bicentennial and enjoying that day on my uncle's farm just 50 miles north of where I sit, ringing a 100-year-old bell on the exact hour the Declaration was signed. It was a wonderful day. I wish many of you who are too young now could have experienced it. Because at that point, although we didn't know it, that was as good as it was going to get in America. We were one nation, perhaps not all under God, but our differences seem slight and trivial compared to today. We all agreed on patriotism and progress and decency and getting paid well for a good job. We all agreed we were lucky to live in the greatest nation on earth. It was 1976, and that was as good as things were going to get. Just 4 years later, Ronald Reagan would be elected and begin to undo all the things that made us a great nation and a great people. And it led us to where we are today, a nation full of hate, racism, misogyny, xenophobia. A nation ready to cashier 250 years of representative government because someone somewhere who doesn't look like me is getting something I deserved. We are a nation of raging toddlers tearing ourselves apart while Trump and his billionaire cronies loot our treasury and pick our pockets. And too many of us cheer this. The bill will come due, my friends, and very soon. The leopards will be busily eating the faces of the MAGA faithful who thought, aside from preserving white supremacy, that Trump would lower the price of eggs. How stupid could these people be, as it turns out? Very stupid. Last night I poured myself some whiskey, put on some memorable music, posted on Threads. I watched it all unfold on television. And I thought to myself that the one thing that Trump and his MAGA goons could never take from me are those memories. The memories of those 4th of July, those Memorial Days, those Labor Days of my youth. They couldn't take away the memories of the country I used to know, where neighbors would greet each other across the fence rather than shove banners that say "fuck your feelings" on your fence so your neighbor's kids could read them. No, I will keep the America I knew in my heart, like Ebenezer Scrooge landed up keeping Christmas in his heart. In the coming weeks, months, and years, it may be all I have to keep my heart from turning completely cold and dead. I knew what we were. I know what we've lost. And I hope against hope that when it gets bad, as it will, that people will at last come to their senses. But I wouldn't bet on it. But hey, in the meantime, if someone around here would organize a street march, I'll show up. If the cops attack us, well, that's on them. But we already know what they are now. If the media laughs at us, so what? They have failed us miserably in our time of need. And if MAGAs yell insults and throw things at us, well, after all, we know what they are too. But if we march, we'll hold our heads up high and have our say. We'll demand a redress of grievances and use that First Amendment. We still have it, right? The way the Founding Fathers envisioned using the First Amendment, especially in times such as these. In Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring, there is this famous line. Frodo is lamenting the state of affairs they find themselves in and their battles against evil. Quote, "I wish it need not happen in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf. "And so do all who live to see such times. That is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Good night, and good luck."